Have you ever thought about what you're doing may be something that you shouldn't be doing?
Welcome to this week's devotional. Glad that you joined me. So often as we're looking at life, the last question or the last thought that we actually want to have is is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Now, even in this, admitting to the very fact that there might be something that we shouldn't be doing is going into the very question as to why we're doing what we're doing to start with. Even through the Bible, we see not just Solomon, but other Bible writers mentioning that certain things in certain ways have become to where they're useless. There's no reasoning behind why things are being done. And we even see Solomon himself talking to the point that everything is vanity, everything is vain. There is no reason why this should be done or even why this is continuing. Now, we don't want to admit that what we're doing might have a worthless reason, or even the fact that the reasoning behind it is worthless. But even with saying that, God continues to come back to us through the scriptures saying, when you're seeing that this or something else is in vain or it is vanity, or you put your own wording into the blank, let me take control. Let me have the full course of what's going on so that you're able to be the people that I've called you to be. Now, what would happen in our lives if we actually do what God actually is asking of us? If we let go, and I know a lot of us hate that old adage of letting go and letting God, but maybe that's what we need. Maybe we need to realize that our thinking, our ways are not what we should be doing, and it is only in God's way. I like to say like is kind of putting it in a very interesting way. Solomon puts this in a very interesting light in Ecclesiastes. This week's devotional verses come from Ecclesiastes chapter 4, looking at verses 4 through 7. And they say this: I have seen that every labor and every skill which is done in is the result of rivalry between a man and his neighbor. This too is vanity and striving after wind. The fool folds his hands and consumes his own flesh. One hand full of rest is better than two fists full of labor and striving after wind. Then I looked again at vanity under the sun. There was a certain man without a dependent, having neither son nor brother, yet there was no end to all his labor. Indeed, his eyes were not satisfied with riches, and he never asked, and for whom am I laboring and depriving myself of pleasure? This too is vanity and is a grievous task. Now, right there, I want to encourage us with this. Go back, take a look at the context. But not just the context, read through Ecclesiastes, amazing book right there that points us to asking the question, why am I doing what I'm doing? Is this for my honor, my glory, or is it ultimately for God's honor and glory? That should be the continual question in and through everything that we're doing, through what we're saying, and even more who we're being. All right, there, that's a whole ball of wax that we don't even want to touch on most days. And maybe one of these days we'll actually take the time to be able to look at that concept. But am I doing, am I being, am I seeing, am I, you put it in the blank, what God is actually asking of me to be? If that is our first, foremost, and last thought, maybe things will actually change. Maybe things will be better. Maybe our conversations will be different as well. As we continue to come back together week after week after week, let's remember that that's what God's calling us to. He's calling us to something different. He's calling us to be in the now, be in His Word, to be rooted in Him, to make it to where things are not vain, because we are focused on what truly needs to be focused on. Focused on Him and Him alone through all courses in life. Thank you again for joining me. I look forward to seeing you next time as we continue to study God's Word together. God bless.